Welcome back, Prime Timers. It's Dominic from the Primetime Treasure eBay store and YouTube channel. I'm thrilled you decided to come back to check out another video, especially when it's on my favorite topic, which is comic books. Now, a couple of days ago, I did a video on whether or not comic books are worth a lot of money just because they're old. So you could check that video out if you didn't see it at the end of this one, because I'm going to link to it at the very end. So go check that one out if you haven't seen it. Now, this video today is meant to be much more broad and comprehensive, to go over comic books of different eras and ages, and also comic books of different shapes and sizes. I want you to be familiar with those if you see them out in the field, and you need to know the terms that are associated with each of those if you decide to do a search, or if you come across certain words that you may otherwise be unfamiliar with. This will give you some more familiarity going into it. So it's meant to be a longer video. I'm not sure exactly how long it will be, but just kind of bookmark it maybe for a reference at a later point that you might need to come back to and check out. But certainly you could always contact me with questions, and I'm always glad to respond. I'm also going to show you how to protect the comics from different ages, because they have different sizes associated with them. And with that, I'm also going to show you how to protect comic books, not just of different eras, but also of different sizes, because there's different sizes sometimes even within a certain era. So you'll see what I'm talking about in just a few minutes, and I'm going to kind of jump right into it right now. And really, comic books is a complicated area. The reason why I decided to divide all these videos out into different subject areas, because you cannot do justice to the comic book industry in just one or a few videos. It really takes a lot of separate videos to get this down. So, what I want to start off with is talking about the different eras that comic books are from. And generally speaking, there are four main eras of comic books. There's what's called the Golden Age of comic books, there's the Silver Age of comic books, there's the Bronze Age of comic books, and there's what we're in now, which is called the Modern / Current Age of comic books. Now, some people throw in a fifth era, which we'll go over later, which is called the Copper Age. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that. See, people in the comic book industry, comic book collectors, they like to make things complicated. Even within the Golden Age of comics, which most people consider represent comic books that span the ages of 1938 to 1955. And then 1956, everyone agrees, starts the Silver Age of comic books. But because people in comic book land like to make things complicated, there are some that say the Golden Age of comics is from 1938 to 1950. But those same people say that the Silver Age starts at 1956. So you see the problem. What do you do? What do you call? How do you classify the comic books from 1951 to 1955 if you believe that it ends at 1950? No one has another name for that. For that age. No one calls them goldeny, silvery books, or gives it another kind of shade or gem color. No one does that. So it's logical to basically call those books Golden Age books, and that's what most people do. Now, in my prior video that I did, I showed examples of Golden Age comic books, and those are going to be the ones that are 10-cent comic books. You're going to see it either literally say 10 cents on the comic, like this one. This is a Batman comic. This is issue 46 from 1948. So you see right there, it says 10 cents on it. What you also see is the issue number right there. So most of these will have that. They'll have the price on it for sure. Most of them will have the issue number. Not all of them will have the issue number, but either from this era or the Silver Age era, but most of them will. What they will not have, like as you see here, this is the Bouncer from 1944. This is the oldest one I'm going to show you today. This one, it says 10 cents, but it's actually written out in numerical format there. You see it does have the issue number, but what it doesn't have anywhere is the year. Same thing with this one, Little Lulu from 1954. It has the price on it. Now it has the month on it there, but it does not have the actual issue number. I'm going to show you how to find that in a moment if you are trying to look up the book. Now this is Vic Verity number 6, also 10 cents. So all of them had the price on it. Not all of them had the issue number. So let's take out Little Lulu, because if you found this book and said Little Lulu and you're trying to figure out which issue this is, there's a lot of them that were made. Now, the way you figure it out is you have to take the book out of the bag if it's bagged and boarded. And just like a regular book, what you're going to do is you're going to open the first page. And now sometimes it's actually on the inner cover, but other times, like here, it's right down below, and you can see the issue number is right there. So right there, that issue number, if you zoom up on it, it's number 74. It's right here. So just put that right up close to the camera. So that's how you'd find it. So you would look it up. You'd literally type in Little Lulu 74. That's what you would type in, and that would bring it up. When you do that, you really don't even need to know the year, although, actually I should point that out as well. I did tell you that this book comes from 1954, but on all of these books in that same area, you will also see right next to the issue number, it does also say the year. So I'll have that right there. There's the year. Now, you see here, what I have this in is what we call a bag and a board. Now, the bag serves a few purposes. I mean, the main purpose is to protect it, so if something spills on it, you know, like a drink or something, well, you just wipe that off, it doesn't damage the book underneath. It also helps protect it from the elements. You know, if it's damp, I mean, it won't give 100% protection. It'll give some protection from sunlight, but not complete. There's certain really fancy types of comic book covers, and we'll have to cover that in a separate video that you could get if you want like super duper protection, but they're real expensive. These are basic ones. I just want to stick with the basics today. So it serves that purpose. The other purpose that it serves is it really does help cover up a lot of flaws with the comics. It helps them display nicely. Like this comic, you know, if I bring it up real close to you, you can see there's a few little creases and stuff in it. I mean, there's not a lot, but even if the book has a lot of creases, when you put it in this bag, it gives it a nice shine to it, and it really helps to make it look a lot nicer, and it helps to display it really well. So that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind with the comic book bags, is they do serve multiple purposes. I mean, the main purpose of the board is pretty straightforward and singular. It's really there just to make sure the comic doesn't bend, because if you take the comics and you just put them in a box, what's going to happen is they're going to bend like this, and you're going to have a problem on your hand in terms of it damaging the condition of the book. So it is always helpful to have the comic books bagged and boarded. Now, when you find an old comic book like this, you cannot go out to the comic store, buy modern age bags and boards, and expect the book to fit in it. The reason why is because this comic book is wider than the modern size comic book. So it requires what's known as a golden age comic book bag and board. And this is a pack. They come in packs of 100. You can see there it says Golden Age right there. So that's the type you would pick up. The company there is BCW. I highly recommend using BCW. It's pretty much the most commonly used brand for comic book protection in the industry. Golden Age boards, you get those as well. Now, in terms of how much these boards and bags are going to run you, it really depends on the size and the era, but usually they're going to run you anywhere between like $6, $7 to certain ones. If they're, you know, much bigger bags and boards, like Treasury Edition ones I'll show you later, could run up to like $15 for 100 of them. So it really depends. You know, I have a good local place where I go to that I you know, get some good deals on them, but you could use like your Amazon Prime points, for example, your cashback bonus. You know, if you want to, you know, get it that way. There's all sorts of ways you could get it by reducing, you know, kind of reduce your impact in terms of price. I am going to link to every single one of these bags and boards that you see in this video down below in the description section. They're all going to be affiliate links to Amazon. So yes, if you purchase them or anything through those links that will help support this channel, brings in a tiny bit of commission. Trust me, it's not anything that I'm getting rich off of, but it does just help support the channel. So I'm going to put those links down below if you'd like to use those. So those are the golden age bags and boards. Now the next thing that I'm going to show you are the Silver Age books. Now Silver Age is from 1956 to 1970, and once we get into the Silver Age, we're really dealing with books now that have all that have some that have a little bit of more variety in terms of prices, because with the Golden Age you're really just dealing with 10-cent issues, but once we jump into Silver Age we're going to deal with 12-cent issues and 15-cent issues. So this would be an example right here, Kona, which I love the covers on here, but this is from 1962. It's not worth a lot of money, even though it has a really cool cover. I just bought it, you might remember from one of my videos, I purely bought it to display because I just think it's just a really amazing cover and to read it. But 1962 book, and you can see there, 12 cents right there. Now, another one here is this U.S. Marines one. There were a lot of these that were made back in the day, a lot of Army books made during this era, Army, Marines, Air Force, all the branches of the military. They had comic books. It was a very patriotic thing for kids to pick up these books and read them, and even adults would get into them and read these books. And so, there's if you come across one of these, there is an audience for them, but it's not as big as the superhero audience. So always keep that in mind when you are looking for comic books and you're looking for something to invest in. The best possible thing you could do with older books, I mentioned this in the prior video, is look for superhero-related ones. Spider-Man, Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, your common characters that you're familiar with, Flash, Aquaman, those sorts of things. That's what you're looking for. There can be value in some of these other books. Like, for example, I just picked up a whole bunch of 12-cent Roy Roger issues, and while if I just tried to sell one of those, it wouldn't be worth much, but if you could lot them together, get like 30 or 40 of them like I did, you could sell them for a few $100s. So there is an audience out there. It's just not as broad as you might imagine for Roy Rogers as there is for Batman, but there are still some people out there looking for those things. Now, this would be a great example of what I'm talking about. This is a classic cover. This is one of my favorite books that I have. I have not been able to get myself around to selling it. It's 1967. It's the first issue of the Submariner. Some people call him the Submariner. It's just, I love this cover, and this is the kind of thing you're looking for. If you had the choice to pick up this issue, Submariner #1, or Kona, which is not really a superhero, or, I'll give you another example, Alice in Wonderland, most of the time, you're going to go with this one. Now, you're going to run across these every so often. These are called classic illustrated comic books, and basically what they did is they retold famous stories in comic book format. Usually when you find them, they're pretty beat up. Like you can see here, the corner is chipped off. It's hard to find them in mint condition. I could do a whole video on classic illustrateds, because there are certain classic illustrateds that, based on what it says when you open the inside of it, it tells you it gives you some information, but you have to be technically knowledgeable about it to figure out what print run it is. You could make a lot of money on some of these books, but you have to have some special inside knowledge about it, and that's going to have to be for a separate video. But some classic illustrators could be worth a lot. I like picking them up when I see them. If you could get a small lot of them together, they will definitely sell. There is a market out there for that. So those are your 12 and 15-cent issues. Now, once we move into the Bronze Age, we're dealing with the 1970 to 1985 books. And this is the era where I started to collect comic books. And so I personally have a great affinity for books in this era. If you see books from this age range, from the Bronze Age range, you should generally pick them up if you can. In addition to the Silver Age and the Golden Age, pick them up if you see them out there. It's harder and harder to come by, even if they have condition flaws with them. Now, if they're completely, utterly destroyed and ripped to shreds, don't pick it up. But even if they have some significant damage, like I explained recently in the other video with this Batman one, you see all the corners are chipped up and everything. Even though it's damaged, the back is pretty damaged, but the inside is pretty nice. I have this right now on my eBay store for $499, basically $500. Last time I looked, there were 2 watchers on it. I haven't looked recently, but that one's going to sell for several $100s, even though it has a bunch of damage to it. But let's move over to the Silver Age, and not the Silver Age. Let's move over to the Bronze Age, and I'll show you. You have a greater variety in terms of comic book prices. Essentially, what happened for the most part is that they kept increasing the comic book prices by like 5 or 10 cents. So here you can see we've got the Harlem Globetrotters, and that's a 20-cent issue. Now you'll see here that this is made by Gold Key. A lot of books during this era were made by Gold Key or Dell. So you'll see like a lot of Disney books and stuff like that. Now, a mistake people will make sometimes is picking up one of these Disney books and thinking that they're worth a lot because it says 20 cents and, you know, it comes from the early 1970s and they think it's worth something. It's generally not the case. It would have to be like a first issue or something really, really special would have had to have happened in it, because for the most part, even though Disney in general is a collectible line and generally brings in good money, that's not actually true for the comic books. There are exceptions, but for the most part, Disney comic books, not worth a ton of money. Same thing with Looney Tune books that you come across. I've sold like an old Bugs Bunny from the 1940s, but you know, and that had some good value to it. But for the ones you're typically going to come across, again, not a lot of value in those. But if you could get a small lot of them together, then people might buy them. But single issues, it could be tough. So there we go. We got the Harlem Globetrotter right there. That one, in terms of the age, I'll open them up just to tell you the age, because even in this era, you're not going to see the age on the cover right there. So that one's 1973, just to give you a sense. This one here, now we bump up to 25-cent comic books, as you can see here. This is a supervillain comic book, so these are pretty popular if you could find those. This is from 1976. So that's just bumping up a few years there. This is one of my favorites because I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but you've probably seen it and behind me in some of my videos. My Godzilla toy from when I was a kid. I love Godzilla. Godzilla is my favorite monster. Godzilla rules. My son, Primetime Jr., he loves Godzilla, all the monsters. I grew up with the Godzilla movies. So I have the whole complete run of Godzilla, King of Monsters. This also comes from the 1970s. This first issue, now this one actually has a year on it. This is one of the earlier issues that has a year. You can see there from 1977. So there are about 20 or so issues of these made, and I was able to pick up the whole lot a few months ago. So that's another one of these Bronze Age books. And that one, as you can see there, this is a 30-cent book. Okay, but we're still in the same era, and you're going to see it keeps going up. Now we've got 35-cent books here. So we've got some of those, 35 cents. Now we're into 1972. Now the reason for that is because different companies sometimes had different production costs, and so sometimes their costs would be higher than another company. You know, this is a company that is not well known. It's called Modern Comics. It's not like DC or Marvel or even Dell or Gold Key. There were some kind of esoteric brands that were out there that were making comic books, and sometimes they're called basement comics because they're really just kind of made them on low production runs, and they're usually, when you find them, they're pretty damaged like this, and value is really hit or miss with them. So there's that one here. Now we get into the more traditional Marvel comic books. Here we got the Avengers. This is a 1980 comic book right here, so we're getting towards the end of the bronze range. And I'm going to show you the bags and boards that you would use in a moment. There's Silver Age bags and boards, but you would really use them for the Bronze Age and the Silver Age. That's why I'm waiting towards the end. They never made bags just for the Bronze Age. So I'm going to show you those in just a second. But this is Moon Knight #1, and that one is from 1980 as well. And you can see there we're into 50 cents. This one here was a 40-cent issue. So you can see all these different prices all within one range and one era. The prices really fluctuated a lot. There were no 55-cent books that I've ever seen, but there are 60-cent books right there, like this Incredible Hulk. That one is from 1983. And we also had 65-cent books as well. So that one was from 1984. So I had some of those as a kid, the 65-cent ones, but really when I really started actively collecting, like hardcore, I was, buying them when they were 75 cents a piece, and they were like that way for a while until they jumped up to $1. I'm going to show you those in a moment. But the types of bags and boards that you want for Bronze Age books and Silver Age books are here. These are 7 by 10.5 inches, and BCW again makes those, and you could see there Silver Age. Okay, and same thing with those are the boards. Here's the bags right there. Silver Age as well. You can see there 10.5 by 7 1/8 inch. So that's what you're looking for there. With the Golden Age, the dimensions on those were a little bit longer there. We've got 7 5/8 inch there. So you can see it's a little bit wider to cover a little bit bigger of a book. So the comics, they started just basically reducing the size of them as they got, as they came more closer to the current modern age that we're in now. I'm going to show you those in just a second. Now, technically, you could technically fit a Bronze Age book in a modern comic book bag and board sometimes, but usually it's going to be a pretty tight fit, and it's going to kind of be a little bit squishy in there. So you don't want that. You want it to lay nice and flat against the board. So just get the Silver Age bags and boards for those. Make sure it's a nice, comfortable, flat fit in that bag and board setup. Now, in terms of modern age books, to show you a couple of those, I told you 75-cent issues. I used to collect these all the time. It's a Superman book right there. You can see 75 cents. So now we're into books from 1986 all the way up to the present. Is called the modern / current age. Now, technically, there are some people that have parceled out what they call a copper age. And for people who subscribe to that model, those are books that go from 1984 to 1991, and then they call anything after that the modern or current age. So it just depends. You'll see some people use different models, but in terms of timing and aging things, but most people use the 4-part model that I described earlier of golden, silver, bronze, modern, current. So there we got the 75-cent issues, and then we've got this one here is a $1.95 issue. Now, it didn't jump up from 75 cents to $1.95. It went from 75 cents to $1. Then it went to $1 to $1.25 pretty darn quickly for people who are watching this who remember back in the day. Then the next thing you know, they were $1.50, $1.75, $2. It started getting crazy to now, where it basically costs, $2.95, $3.99, $4.99 for a comic book. So it's not the same I feel bad for kids these days in a sense, because while they do have a lot of things that, of course, we didn't have when we were younger, and one of the great things was just, go into the comic book store with $5 and be able to come out of there with 5 or 6 books. Now, go and, into a, Barnes & Noble, for example, which sells some comics, and you have $5, you're walking out with 1 comic book. So, it was great to be able to walk out with that many, because you have a lot of reading material just with $5. So, but these are the bags and boards. You got the modern age bags, and you can see here now we're under 7 inches. We're 6 7/8 inch, and you can even see here we're still pretty much the same there with 10.5 inches. So it's the 6 7/8 that really got reduced there. And same thing with the comic book boards. It's a little bit less there. It's 6 3/4 because remember it's got to fit within the bag. So and then you're at 10.5 inches there. So that's what you want with your comic book bags and boards for your main eras. Now I want to show you some things with regards to different sizes, because that's just the very basic. But one of the things you'll also come across, although not often, but once in a while you will, these are very, very thin books. They're called Ashcan books. and generally when they come out, they're usually worth a lot of money. You can see how thin this is. It's not that many pages. Like sometimes it's a preview issue like this, a preview right there. These short books, they really can be pretty valuable. Like this one here, Cyberfrog, which is someone who definitely want to look out for. Popular character. Kind of has a little bit of an underground following. Just this one book right here, and I got 3 of them recently. This one book right here is worth between $80 and $100. I mean, should easily sell for between that range. So just put it up the other day, and then I got 2 other ones to put up. So I'm thrilled about this. If you see those Ashcans out there, definitely pick them up. Now, also, in terms of short books that these ones you've probably seen before. These are not considered Ashcans. These are what you've probably seen and read when you were younger. These are your digest versions. So this is Archie, for example. This is Jughead. This is what most people would be familiar with. Betty and Veronica, that type of stuff. These books are not worth really anything significant individually. Where you can make some good money on them, though, is getting a lot of these together, like 20 or so, and then putting them together. Then you could sell them. But selling them individually, really tough unless you had like the first issue or something like that. Now, they did make some reprints of superhero books and things like this. Like I have one right up right now in my Primetime Treasury eBay store of Batman that was in a digest version. So they did make some of those, and those are popular. People like to go pick those up, from the 1970s and stuff. So you could get those, you could pick those up as well, and you could generally do better with with the superhero ones than you're going to with these. Now, another thing that you want to be on the lookout for are what we call trade paperbacks. So this is a Wolverine trade paperback. Basically, what the deal is with a trade paperback, often known as a TPB, that's how it's commonly abbreviated online, is there's some people who they didn't want to keep all these comic books stored up, and how they preferred to read the comics were basically in a condensed form like this. So basically what this book right here does, this Wolverine Origins book, is it collects the 6 issues of Wolverine Origins all in one place. So it's right there. So rather than having to have 6 different bags and boards, 6 different books they have to worry about in terms of condition, you just get this one and you're all set. Now, this is not going to be worth more than the individual original books because they're reprints. But if you get a first printing, for example, because they often made multiple printings, which you could tell inside, you just have to open it up and you'll be able to see. If it doesn't say anything about the printing, you could assume that it is the first printing. But you could put these in Silver Age or Golden Age bags and boards, and that's how I send them out when I mail them, is I get them inside one of those. Trade paperbacks, hit or miss in terms of whether or not they're valuable or not. It really just depends on the character and what happened in the storyline. So you have to look them up and you have to do your comps research on them. There are also hardcovers. So those trade paperbacks, by definition, paperbacks, they are a soft cover, but they do make hardcover versions out there. And if you could find them sealed like this one, that's the best scenario because people know that the inside of them is not going to be damaged because it's sealed. Doesn't mean that there can't be some damage to the outside from it being dented or something, so you do have to look them over. But if you could find sealed hardcover books like this, which look just like a comic book inside, pick them up if you get it for the right price. Again, make sure you're checking your comps research. Now, a few other things I want to show you before we wrap up, which would be magazine-sized bags and boards and magazine-sized comic books. A good example of that would be Conan, and you can see here this is a magazine as opposed to, if I could get one of my regular comic books out here and just compare the size, you could see there's our regular comic book right there. There's the size difference right there. Okay, so this is much wider, and so this is going to require a wider size bag and board, just like a Mad magazine will. Mad magazines, I make a killing on Mad magazines. I can't even tell you. I mean, it's just amazing. You've got to get them in lots and preferably stick with the Mad magazines from the 1980s or earlier. If you could get 20 or so of them together, even if they have damage to them, it can't be severe damage, but even if they have some wear and chips and creases and little rips in them, even a tiny bit of writing, even some staining, people will still buy them. So Mad magazines, look for those. Cracked magazine, which is kind of like the stepsister of Mad magazine, previously was known as Crazy. Those have some value as well, but nowhere near the value of the Mad magazines. So, be on the lookout for those. What you're looking for is a magazine size bag and board, which comes like this. Magazine size, it just says that on it, also made by BCW, and then you're going to have your magazine boards to go right along with it. Now, if you're watching this and you've still stuck around to this point, and you're still telling yourself, I'm never going to do anything with these comic books, and if I find them, I'm still not comfortable. Even if that's the case, and that's true, you're still going to learn something from this video, because I highly recommend, if you're selling valuable magazines, even if they're not comic book magazines, get those bags and boards and put them in there to protect them and to ship them out. Your customers will love you for it. You just have to make sure it makes sense financially. I'm talking if you have something that's really valuable that you want to send out, put them in the bags and boards. I put other things in there too, like foldable posters. I like to put in there other books sometimes that I want to protect, or any kind of paper-based material that's kind of like a book size. Maps, I like foldable maps. I'll put in there and send them out. So you could use these for many other things besides comics. Again, the links are down below in the description section for all of these different bags and boards. There's one more bag and board type that I want to show you. And I personally have like a strong preference for these books, even though there's some people that don't like them, but they do have a very strong following. Whenever I put them up, they always sell. I literally have never had, I'm not exaggerating, I literally have never, ever posted a Treasury size comic book that's in decent condition. I mean, not one that's totally destroyed, but it has to be in decent condition. I've never had one not sell. This is what they look like. They are big, big books, and they're so cool inside. I'm going to show you, unlike your average comic book, why they're so cool inside. I mean, your average comic book is cool, don't get me wrong, but these are just amazing. Like, it's just so big and bold, and it's got these really cool, just big pages, and a lot of them have these pinups inside. Like, this one is here. If anyone's watching this as a superhero fan or supervillain fan, you just drool over a pinup like this with all the supervillains right there, and then they would have like cutouts on the back, and if you could have those, that they're preserved, it's great. I mean, people love these. They love to go back and look at them. These, this one comes from 1975. So most of these are going to be pretty much in the Bronze era. Now, they still do make some Treasury editions, but they're kind of like gimmicky when they make them nowadays. Back in the day, they used to make these on a regular basis. So for DC, they were called Limited Collector's Edition. For Marvel, they made the Marvel Treasuries. So be on the lookout for those. Some of them, like for example, I've sold several times the first ever DC and Marvel crossover, which is when the two companies got together, collaborated to make a battle between Spider-Man and Superman. If you ever find that book and it's in decent shape, you could sell that for near $100. So I've done that several times. I love, love, love finding those kind of books. And so we've got Treasury bags, which you could see how big these are compared to even the Golden Age ones, and these are just huge, and these are going to be more money. These are going to be like $15, $16, something like that. And here's your Treasury boards. So, the prices fluctuate a little bit. You just got to, look them up. You can see the size here. We've got 10.5 by 13.5 inches. So you can buy, you will have different options. Some of them you have to apply a piece of tape to tape them and seal them shut, and I'll do a separate video all about that to show you the right and the wrong way to do it, because there's ways you could really screw up and damage your books if you're not familiar. But if you want to be really safe, these right here, they're going to cost you more, but they're resealable. That's the word you'd want to type in. They're resealable. So you'll have that option. You can look. So resealable means you don't have to put your own tape on them. It comes with a little sticky adhesive on the back, and you just close the flap, and it will take care of the book for you. So I have wanted to do this video for about a year, but the reason why I didn't do it is because I was really uncertain whether or not people in the reselling community were going to have an interest in it. But sure enough, when I did my live show, a lot of people were asking, do a comic book video, do some more then when I put the first one up, do some more comic book videos. So I'm really happy to see that I'm bringing some attention to something that I love and I'm so passionate about. So it's great to do that. The other reason why I didn't do it is really it required a lot of preparation work. The prior video I did, I really meant to do it on this, but it was just required a lot of organization, and I just decided to start it off by just doing a brief little thing about the Golden Age books, which is where we started off again tonight, but just to talk to you about value, because it was just so overwhelming to try to figure out how to present all of this to you in a clear and concise and cohesive way. Hopefully I did that. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, comments, anything like that, suggestions for topics of other comic book related videos, please let me know. I will be happy to answer those questions and do a video on it for you. So that's it. If you liked the video, please make sure you hit the like button. I will just issue an apology for last night. That darn glare that I have from these fluorescent lights overhead, I even have a little bit of it right here. But last night it really caused problems and really caused like kind of a haziness to it. It looked like the lens was not clear, but it's just these overhead lights, which one day hopefully I'll be able to fix and get some different lighting in here. But for now, that's what I have, and we'll make the best of it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Share this video with others. Let them know about the Primetime Treasure YouTube channel. And make sure you come follow me on Instagram. That's at Primetime Treasure _ between each one of those. So prime _ time _ treasure. No S at the end. And lastly, make sure you come to my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. If you see this before Monday, which I believe is the 15th, you will be able to, October 15th, you'll be able to enter my contest. It's a giveaway, really, on winning a free lighting kit, a $50 value. So go over there and make sure you check that out. The winner will be drawn live at my Instagram account sometime Monday night, October 15th. So I hope to see you all there, and I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you at the next one. Take care, everybody.